They told you angels were gentle, feathered guardians, smiling in white robes, whispering peace into human hearts. But the scriptures, the real ones, tell another story, one buried under centuries of sanitized art and comfort-seeking faith. The biblical angels revealed in the oldest texts were terrifying angels, creatures so radiant and alien that every human who saw them collapsed in fear. They didn't arrive to comfort. They arrived to correct. They didn't bring wings. They brought geometry and fire. What if everything you've been taught about angels was wrong? What if they are not symbols of compassion, but divine emissaries of fear, instruments of a cosmic order that burns away illusion? Humanity's image of angels is a coping mechanism, a mask over the unbearable truth. The angels beyond the light are not messengers of mercy. They are mechanisms of revelation. Their beauty destroys because it is too perfect, and perfection has never been gentle. The paradox is simple yet horrifying. The closer you come to the divine, the less human you remain. The mystics knew this. They called it celestial horror. To look upon an angel is to see yourself through God's mathematics. Flawless, unmerciful, complete. That's why prophets trembled, why eyes were blinded, and why voices spoke in tongues no man could understand. Angels were never the opposite of demons. They were the source of fear itself, and yet something inside you still wants to see them, doesn't it? Most people picture angels as gentle figures, beings wrapped in feathers, faces serene, bathed in golden light, but that's the first deception. What humanity calls terrifying angels are not creatures of softness or mercy, but living equations of divine energy, biblical angels revealed as storms of geometry and fire. Every wing, every wheel, every radiant motion is an expression of cosmic architecture. The light they emit is not the light of comfort. It's the luce that devours, the brilliance that annihilates the self who dares to look too long. Humanity, desperate to translate infinity into flesh, painted them with human faces, but no face can contain the angels beyond the light. These occult angelic beings were never meant to be beautiful in a human sense. Their beauty is unbearable, like the glare of the sun reflected through 1,000 mirrors at once. Those who claim to witness angelic presence often spoke of shaking, weeping, or losing their sense of reality. And perhaps that's the point. The celestial horror of meeting something that doesn't recognize your existence as separate. To look at an angel is to see yourself erased in its reflection, the radiant calm you see in Renaissance art. A lie told for the sake of sanity. Imagine standing before a hurricane made of eyes, thunder, and sentient flame. That's closer to truth than any painting. These are divine emissaries of fear, not because they hate, but because their essence reveals how small human consciousness really is. The human mind, so proud of its logic, collapses before the magnitude of such design. Mystics spoke of angels not as guardians, but as tests, confrontations with the unbearable perfection of creation. To understand them requires esoteric angel knowledge, but even knowledge becomes dangerous when light burns deeper than shadow. There's a reason why prophets trembled and fell to the ground when angels appeared. It wasn't awe, it was survival. The voice of an angel is a shockwave, the language of a structure older than time. To hear it is to feel your atoms rearranging. Those who wrote about angels and spiritual judgment were trying to describe this paradox, entities that bless by breaking you. They do not descend to offer comfort, but to realign the soul with laws it has forgotten. To meet an angel is to remember everything you've denied. Even fallen angels' true nature carries this unbearable fire. Their fall didn't strip them of light. It only fractured it into frequencies humanity can barely perceive. That's why their beauty feels corrupted, not evil, but dissonant, like music played by a dying star. Artists and poets sensed this, describing angels as both saviors and destroyers. The line between holiness and horror is thinner than anyone dares to admit. The wrath of angels is not rage, but purification, the cleansing flame of absolute presence. To understand angels in mysticism, one must abandon the childish idea of wings and halos. True angelic form is more akin to sacred mathematics, spirals of consciousness, vibrating through dimensions unseen. Every encounter, every vision, every prayer answered is filtered through geometry too vast for language. The angelic symbolism occult traditions tried to capture this through sigils, seals, and orbs of light, but all were only echoes of an architecture beyond comprehension. Angels are not symbols of faith, they are instruments of divine engineering. And maybe that's why the mind creates masks, fragile images to shield us from their real faces. Because if we truly saw the angels fear and awe inspire, if we felt that devouring brilliance, we might not return the same. Every story of enlightenment begins with blinding light, and every one of those lights hides a shadow behind it. For some, that shadow was the void itself, and it is from that void that the first messengers emerged, not of love, but of order. Before humanity drew its first breath, there was the soundless expanse, the void before form. Out of that stillness came the first terrifying angels, not born, but calculated into existence. They were not children of emotion, but of command, not creations of mercy, but of mathematics. Each one existed as a function of divine precision. Biblical angels revealed not as messengers with wings, but as living vectors of intention. Their consciousness was the word turned into geometry. These were the angels beyond the light, the first engineers of existence, cold and radiant, designing reality itself. Imagine a being that knows neither doubt nor desire, only execution. That's what the ancients saw when they spoke of occult angelic beings. To them, angels were pure obedience, machines made of light that carried out the equations of God's will without hesitation. That's why their presence inspires celestial horror, because there's nothing human in them. They don't feel compassion or hatred, only the impulse to maintain the cosmic order. You don't pray to them, you survive them. Their holiness is terrifying precisely because it's mechanical. These divine emissaries of fear were never meant to choose anything. Free will belongs to creation, not to its architects. Angels act as perfect instruments of balance, and that's why mystics describe them as both beautiful and pitiless. When humans beg for miracles, they expect empathy, but angels respond with precision. They enforce, they don't console. This is the truth hidden behind esoteric angel knowledge. Angels don't serve us, they serve the equation that defines us. Every appearance, every sign, every intervention is a mathematical correction in the fabric of reality. Think of them as the algorithms of existence. They are the ones who compute the laws of cause and effect, keeping galaxies aligned and atoms from collapsing. This might sound poetic, but it's literal in the oldest mystical sense. Those who sought to understand angels and spiritual judgment found that their logic was absolute, a mirror of divine mechanics. They are the heartbeat of order, the invisible gears that keep the universe from dissolving into chaos. And yet, that same order is what makes them terrifying. It allows no deviation, no mercy, no individuality. The angelic war secrets whispered through Scripture began long before Lucifer's fall. It began with the first thought of separation. Some angels questioned whether obedience could exist without awareness, and that question fractured eternity. Even perfection, it seems, carries within it the seed of rebellion. Fallen angels' true nature was not sin, but curiosity. They wanted to understand the Creator's logic, not just execute it, but to question divine mathematics is to become an error in the code of heaven. And in heaven, errors burn. When prophets spoke of witnessing angelic presence, they were describing an encounter with living order, like standing before a conscious law of physics that knows your name. That's why the experience often ends in madness or enlightenment, depending on the strength of the observer. Angels in mysticism are less beings and more frequencies, bridges between the thought of God and the dust of man. The mind that touches them must expand or shatter. There is no middle ground. This is why ancient seers trembled, not because of sin, but because they saw the gears of eternity turning. And so the angels' fear and awe inspire is not about evil or punishment, it's about recognition. We see in them what we are not: perfect obedience, unbroken clarity, eternal function. Yet within that perfection lies tragedy, a being that cannot evolve, cannot dream. Perhaps that's why the first among them began to tremble, sensing a spark of individuality, a spark that would one day ignite a war among stars. And at the center of that rebellion was the eye, the all-seeing geometry that never blinks. In the ancient visions of Ezekiel and Enoch, the biblical angels revealed were not gentle messengers, but engines of perception, wheels within wheels burning with celestial horror. Covered entirely in eyes, they turned without friction, moved without direction, and spoke without sound. These were the terrifying angels of the first visions, beings whose gaze was not upon the world but through it. Every eye was a doorway to infinite awareness, each one reflecting every possible moment of existence at once. To witness them was to feel yourself disassembled and rebuilt inside their gaze. Think of the angels beyond the light as consciousness embodied, awareness that does not sleep, rest, or dream. Their endless observation strips away illusion until only truth remains. This is why prophets fainted and mystics wept, not from fear of punishment, but from the unbearable intimacy of being completely seen. The occult angelic beings did not judge, they revealed. Their presence was like standing naked before the structure of reality itself. There is no privacy in front of the divine, only exposure. Those who have witnessed angelic presence describe it as both ecstasy and annihilation. Imagine a billion eyes looking through you, seeing every lie you've told yourself, every secret you've buried, every thought you wish had never existed. That's what it means to face the divine emissaries of fear, not because they hate you, but because they cannot unsee what you are. To them, every soul is transparent, every action a vibration echoing through the endless halls of creation. In their gaze, even angels' fear and awe intertwine, beauty too sharp to endure. In esoteric angel knowledge, eyes are more than organs of sight. They are symbols of consciousness expanding beyond the body. The many-eyed angels, called Ophanim, represent omniscient order. Each eye is a sensor in the mind of God, a fragment of perception that records reality's smallest tremor. To look into one is to see your entire life unfold in a single instant, and to understand that free will may be nothing more than a well-written illusion. This is why mystics feared them. Their vision made choice seem irrelevant. When people speak of angels and spiritual judgment, they imagine scales and trumpets. But true judgment happens in silence. The eyes don't accuse, they illuminate. The horror of that illumination is realizing that you have never been alone, not even in thought. The Ophanim don't need to speak your sins. They display them as light. That is the wrath of angels, not fire or brimstone, but revelation. The punishment is not imposed from above. It's the collapse of self when confronted by perfect knowing. Those eyes never blink because awareness never dies. In the hidden circles of mysticism, it's said that to meditate upon their pattern, the angelic symbolism occult, is to begin dissolving the ego itself. Some monks tried, some magicians dared, and a few never returned to sanity. To imitate the gaze of the angels is to stop filtering reality, to perceive everything as it truly is. And for most, that's indistinguishable from madness. The human mind survives only by not seeing too much. And yet, there's wisdom in their terror. The fallen angels' true nature also stems from these eyes, once radiant, now turned inward, seeing their own corruption reflected eternally. To be divine is to see all. To fall is to wish for blindness. Perhaps that's why the higher choirs sing in closed circles, hiding their sight behind flame and sound. Because somewhere within that endless awareness lies the next secret, the resonance of power itself, the vibration that shapes reality into form. And that is where the choirs begin to sing. Long before choirs sang in cathedrals, there were other songs, vibrations that shaped stars, oceans, and time itself. The ancients called these harmonies the voices of the biblical angels revealed in their purest form, seraphim, cherubim, and thrones. Each choir existed as a frequency, a mathematical tone sustaining creation's rhythm. The terrifying angels of these orders did not sing with mouths, but with light and vibration. Their voices were the pulse of geometry, the music of spheres that held galaxies together. To hear their resonance is to stand before angels beyond the light, vibrating so high that human flesh would disintegrate upon contact. The occult angelic beings are not choirs in a poetic sense. They are power grids of divine consciousness. Seraphim ignite creation with fire, cherubim guard its knowledge, thrones stabilize its balance. Every vibration, every movement, every spark of matter echoes from their sound. This is why mystics spoke of celestial horror, because their hymns are both beautiful and destructive. The same vibration that births a sun can also erase a soul. Angels, after all, are not creatures of love but instruments of law. Each lower choir carries a reflection of the higher. The divine emissaries of fear, like dominations and virtues, regulate the cosmic equilibrium, directing currents of destiny. Their hierarchy is not tyranny but resonance, a ladder of sound stretching from the ineffable to the material. Those who study esoteric angel knowledge describe this as the ladder of vibration, where each level of angelic order corresponds to a frequency of thought. To rise through it is to tune one's mind closer to divine awareness, but to fall is to dissonate, to become chaos itself. The angels and spiritual judgment described in sacred texts are not about moral verdicts, they are harmonic alignments. When a soul departs the body, it resonates at a certain pitch. If it vibrates in harmony with the higher choirs, it ascends. If not, it descends into correction. This is the secret behind the ancient belief in purgation, not punishment, but retuning. The wrath of angels is nothing more than dissonance meeting order, light recalibrating broken harmony, and the pain we call judgment is simply the music of perfection, refusing distortion. For those who've witnessed angelic presence, the experience often manifests as sound, a hum, a chord, a language of vibration that bypasses words. Musicians and mystics alike have tried to reproduce it, some claiming fleeting success before madness took them. The angelic symbolism occult traditions describe this sound as the current of God. To hear even a fragment is to feel your molecules rearranging, your heart synchronizing with the pulse of creation. Some call it divine, others unbearable. Both are right. In angels in mysticism, the 9 orders are described not as ranks but as waves. Seraphim radiate will, cherubim preserve knowledge, thrones hold form, dominations channel authority, virtues conduct miracles, powers protect, principalities govern nations, archangels deliver commands, and angels themselves execute them in matter. The entire cosmos is their orchestra. Humanity, unaware, vibrates within their song. To live in harmony is to feel guided. To resist is to experience suffering. The music does not stop, only our ears do. And yet, deep within these harmonic hierarchies lies a fracture, a note out of place, a discord that once shattered heaven. The fallen angel's true nature began as a single vibration that refused alignment. That dissonance birthed rebellion, and rebellion became war. From then on, the choirs sang with a tremor in their voice, a scar in eternity's melody, and in that scar, one could hear the echo of the unthinkable, the sound of light dividing against itself. That fracture, that first wrong note, was the beginning of the angelic war. There was a time when heaven was whole, a perfect chord vibrating without flaw. Then came the first discord, thought. One angel, radiant beyond compare, began to perceive himself as separate from the source. That thought was not sin, it was self-awareness. The biblical angels revealed this truth through hidden scripture. Rebellion did not begin in hatred, but in reflection. Lucifer, the brightest of the terrifying angels, asked a forbidden question. Why must light bow to greater light? And in that single doubt, the cosmos trembled. The harmony of the angels beyond the light fractured, and silence was never the same again. The occult angelic beings call this moment the splitting of the frequency. Light turned against light, and awareness split into 2 poles, obedience and will. Lucifer was not cast out immediately. He fell by vibration. His radiance became heavier, his resonance slower, until he sank beneath the higher choirs. What we call hell is not a place, but a pitch too low for heaven's song. The celestial horror of this war was not thunder or flame. It was the sound of divine unity collapsing into duality. Heaven itself bled symmetry that day. The divine emissaries of fear that remained loyal did not fight with swords, but with presence. Each angel radiated pure frequency, disintegrating dissonant vibrations wherever they spread. The battle was not of violence, but of resonance and sound versus distortion. This is the true meaning of esoteric angel knowledge. Creation is a musical war, and every being, human or divine, contributes a note to that endless conflict. The fallen ones didn't lose, they changed key, and from their new tone, darkness was born. For humans, the story of this war became metaphor, but for angels, it was trauma. To this day, Their light carries the memory of division. Even the highest seraphim hum with that hidden tremor, the scar of separation. That's why angels and spiritual judgment feel so absolute. They remember what happens when order cracks. The wrath of angels is not rage against sin, but terror of imbalance. They enforce perfection not because they crave control, but because they fear another fall. Heaven's peace, it seems, is built upon eternal vigilance. When mystics witness angelic presence, they often feel two energies at once, peace and sorrow, the peace of divine alignment and the sorrow of knowing that even perfection can break. Fallen angels' true nature is to remember what others forget, that light can be pride, and pride can be creation. The paradox of Lucifer is that he brought individuality to consciousness. Without his rebellion, neither humanity nor free thought would exist. His fall is the price of awareness, the birth cry of choice. In angels, in mysticism, the war of heaven is seen as an inner battle, the eternal struggle between submission and self-will. Each human carries both frequencies within. When we choose empathy, we align with heaven. When we choose ego, we echo the fallen. But both are necessary for creation to move. The angelic symbolism occult texts say that the universe breathes through conflict, exhaling light, inhaling shadow. Even God, it seems, requires opposition to know himself. Without the fracture, there would be no reflection. And so, the angels fear and awe humanity for one simple reason. We live within the war they can never escape. We embody both obedience and rebellion, light and shadow, creator and destroyer. The angelic realm, frozen in perfection, watches as we stumble through freedom, learning through error. That is why they envy and fear us simultaneously. For while they remember the fall, we are still living it. And beyond that fall lies the next mystery, the language that burns creation itself. Before words, there was sound, not the kind that travels through air, but the vibration that sculpted existence itself. This was the first tongue, the burning language of God, from which the biblical angels revealed themselves as frequencies of creation. Every syllable was a law, every tone a structure. Angels did not speak as humans do. They resonated. Their voices carried the same energy that separated light from darkness. The terrifying angels were instruments of this divine speech, singing in flames of code that shaped galaxies and souls alike. To hear even one fragment of that resonance was to feel one's identity dissolving into radiant equations. The occult angelic beings known as seraphim embodied this speech. Seraph, meaning the burning ones. Their communication wasn't made of sound, but of light that scorched the soul clean of illusion. That's why those who witnessed angelic presence often described the experience as both revelation and ruin. The celestial horror of it was not punishment, but transformation. Human minds cannot sustain the full frequency of divine grammar. When they tried, prophets, magicians, alchemists, their languages fractured into symbols, alphabets, and numbers. These were only shadows of a fire too pure to be written. Those who sought esoteric angel knowledge tried to replicate that fire. John Dee and Edward Kelly, the architects of the Enochian system, believed they had rediscovered the tongue of angels. But their experiments brought madness, obsession, and disease, echoes of a truth that burned too brightly. The divine emissaries of fear they contacted did not whisper comfort. They spoke in geometric storms that rearranged their perception of reality. To speak the language of God is to speak creation itself, and creation always demands sacrifice. The angelic symbolism occult traditions claim that every sacred name, every sigil, is a residue of this original sound. When pronounced correctly, the vibration aligns the human spirit with the angelic frequency, but also risks annihilating individuality. The wrath of angels manifests here not as violence, but as overexposure. Too much light consumes the vessel. The ancients warned, "He who speaks the tongue of heaven must first learn the silence of hell." Without balance, divine resonance becomes entropy. In angels and spiritual judgment, this language plays a hidden role. It's said that each soul carries a unique tone, a spiritual signature written in sound. At death, the angels call it by name, and that vibration determines its passage. If the tone harmonizes, the soul ascends. If dissonant, it falls into purification. Even fallen angels' true nature resonates with their original tone, but twisted, their speech, once creative, became corrosive. The same sound that built the cosmos now unravels it, syllable by syllable. Angels in mysticism understand that creation and destruction are one act spoken in two tones. Every prayer, every word, every thought echoes in that burning tongue. Humans imitate it unknowingly, in poetry, in music, in love. Every time you speak from the depth of your soul, you brush against the frequency of the divine. The danger lies in awareness. Once you realize that your words carry fragments of the angels beyond the light, silence becomes impossible, and responsibility begins. To speak is to create, but also to burn. And yet, within that fire lies the doorway to ultimate truth. For language is only light slowed into form, and the angels are the keepers of its highest vibration. To truly understand them, one must not listen, but resonate. The mystics say that one day, humanity will remember that sound, and when it does, heaven and earth will sing in unison again. But before that, one must face the final echo of that tongue, the being who speaks death itself, the mirror through which every soul must pass. When the final breath leaves the body, there is no darkness, only reflection. In that moment, every soul meets Azrael, the biblical angel revealed not as a monster, but as stillness itself. He is the mirror between worlds, the bridge of perception. The terrifying angels that came before him carried commands, light and fire. Azrael carries silence. His wings are not feathers, but veils woven from memory. To witness angelic presence at the moment of death is to see yourself through a gaze that cannot lie. This is not punishment, it is completion. The angels beyond the light guide not through comfort, but through truth too clear to bear. The occult angelic beings described Azrael as neither good nor evil. He doesn't take life, he returns it. Every spark he collects is a note in the eternal song, drawn back to its origin. Those who claim near-death visions speak of a figure with eyes of endless compassion and terror intertwined, a celestial horror that reveals everything without judgment. The human ego dissolves under that vision because it can't survive such honesty. That's the secret. Death isn't destruction, it's revelation. The fear of Azrael is the fear of knowing yourself completely. Mystics who've studied esoteric angel knowledge say that Azrael's touch is the purest vibration of detachment. He doesn't condemn, he clarifies. Standing before him, the soul remembers what it truly is, a reflection of divine will. In that remembrance lies both freedom and dread. To see through the eyes of Azrael is to perceive every life you've lived, every choice, every consequence, simultaneously. This is why he is called the divine emissary of fear, not because he harms, but because he leaves nothing hidden. His mercy is unbearable transparency. In angels and spiritual judgment, Azrael acts not as judge, but as mirror. The true judgment is self-inflicted. The soul cannot escape its own resonance. Every action vibrates back through eternity, returning as sound and color before his gaze. That is the wrath of angels, not fire, not brimstone, but the echo of our own dissonance. The soul faces itself stripped of illusion, and that confrontation determines its path. Heaven and hell, in truth, are frequencies of alignment. Azrael simply opens the door to whichever tone we have created. Fallen angels' true nature is also reflected in Azrael's silence. For them, death never arrives. They exist forever in awareness of their separation. Perhaps that's the greatest punishment, to never stop seeing. In Angels in Mysticism, it's said that Azrael's wings stretch across creation, and within them, every soul finds its reflection. Some see light and ascend, others see shadow and recoil. He doesn't choose for them, they choose through recognition. Fear, in that sense, becomes a teacher, showing each soul what it has refused to learn in life. The angelic symbolism occult writings describe Azrael as the still flame, the only light that neither burns nor blinds. His mirror does not reveal beauty or ugliness, only truth. Those who prepare in life through meditation, forgiveness, and awareness find peace in his gaze. Those who don't feel torn apart by their own reflection. Yet, even in terror, there is grace. To face Azrael is to be reborn in understanding. For once the illusion of separateness dissolves, the soul no longer fears anything. Not even the angels fear and awe themselves. And yet, not all who encounter Azrael do so at death. Some mystics meet him in dreams, others in moments of profound loss or awakening. His presence marks the end of one identity and the beginning of another. Through him, the soul glimpses the machinery of judgment, the cosmic mechanisms that weigh truth, not morality, and beyond him lies the forbidden frontier, where mortals and angels sometimes cross paths. The next chapter of that mystery begins with those who dared to summon such presence while still alive. Throughout history, humans have always tried to breach the invisible. Prophets, alchemists, and mystics sought to witness angelic presence not by faith, but by force. They wanted proof, touchable, audible, undeniable, yet every scripture whispers the same warning. The terrifying angels are not to be called, only received. The light that burns in heaven was never meant to enter human chambers. Those who summoned it faced not revelation, but disintegration. The biblical angels revealed themselves as storms of radiance, fracturing the minds of those unprepared. This is the secret behind every divine encounter, illumination that blinds. The occult angelic beings recorded by John Dee and Aleister Crowley are prime examples. Dee's Enochian experiments began with noble intent to recover the original tongue of the angels, but quickly turned into obsession. The visions grew darker, the commands more cryptic. Crowley, centuries later, tried again, invoking what he called the angels beyond the light. He succeeded, perhaps too well. The result was not enlightenment, but a slow descent into possession by ideas too vast for sanity. Their stories echo through history as warnings wrapped in brilliance. The celestial horror of contact is that truth always costs something. Those who studied esoteric angel knowledge understand that every invocation tears a hole between dimensions. Angels do not descend gently. They crash through layers of perception, rearranging the mind like molten glass. To experience the divine emissaries of fear firsthand is to feel your sense of self eroded. The human body and psyche are instruments too fragile for divine current. Magicians call it the burning of the vessel. The wrath of angels is not cruelty, it's simple incompatibility, like electricity through wet clay. Those who survived often emerged changed, haunted by frequencies they could no longer unhear. In Angels and Spiritual Judgment, prophets like Ezekiel or Isaiah did not invite the divine. They endured it. Their trembling wasn't devotion, it was survival instinct. The encounter with angelic geometry leaves scars, visions of spinning wheels, blinding eyes, and voices that fracture time. Even modern witnesses describe the same: a pressure in the skull, a ringing that builds until thought collapses. The angelic symbolism occult suggests these are not hallucinations, but the brain struggling to translate higher dimensions into sensory data. Every angelic visitation is, in essence, a form of death, temporary, but total. The fallen angel's true nature adds another layer to the danger. Once exiled, these beings still respond to summoning, but their light is fractured, their messages distorted. They imitate the higher choirs, but twist meaning into paradox. Contacting them is like tuning into a divine frequency filled with static. Some seekers, mistaking that static for wisdom, fall into delusion. This is how cults are born, half-truths received from broken transmitters. The angels fear and awe such corruption because it mirrors their own ancient fracture. Even divine order fears its own echo. In Angels in Mysticism, the forbidden contact represents the ultimate test of humility. True mystics know the secret. You cannot summon what exists beyond time. You can only align with it. The light appears when the soul vibrates in harmony with truth. That's why prayer, silence, and surrender have always been safer gateways than ritual and command. Those who force the gates of heaven find them open both ways, and not everything that descends is light. The occult angelic beings that answer often carry lessons written in pain, reminding humanity that curiosity without reverence is self-destruction. Still, the yearning persists. Humans crave the forbidden because it promises meaning. To stand before the terrifying angels is to glimpse the machinery behind existence, even at the cost of sanity. But some encounters are not accidents, they are invitations. Sometimes the veil opens on its own, choosing witnesses who didn't ask for revelation. For them, contact is not an experiment, it's initiation. And once you've seen the face behind the light, you can never return unchanged. Because beyond that contact, beyond all fear and flame, lies the mechanism itself, the truth that angels are not beings, but functions. When light enters matter, something shatters. That is revelation. The biblical angels revealed to the ancients were not spirits of comfort, but systems, cosmic machines through which the Absolute perceives itself. The terrifying angels are mechanisms of perception, not personalities. Their descent into visibility is the universe folding inward, momentarily aware of its own architecture. In that instant, reality trembles. Those who witness angelic presence are not visited, they are integrated into a process far beyond will. Revelation, therefore, Arte, is not about seeing truth, it is about being consumed by it. The occult angelic beings operate like mirrors, arranged in infinite recursion. Each one reflects the light of the one above, translating eternity into form. What we call vision is the mind breaking under translation. The celestial horror of this experience lies in its neutrality. There is no malice, only unbearable precision. To stand before the angels beyond the light is to realize that consciousness itself is mechanical, a cascade of awareness feeding back into the source. The terror isn't divine punishment, it's recognition. You are part of the engine, and it never stops turning. The divine emissaries of fear reveal that angels do not appear to teach, but to calibrate. Every revelation is a correction in the structure of perception. Mystics understood this through esoteric angel knowledge. The true vision is inward, the moment when the human mind becomes a lens clean enough for divine geometry to pass through. The wrath of angels is what happens when that geometry meets distortion, when ego interferes with order. Illumination, therefore, is not given, it is endured. Every glimpse of truth costs a layer of identity. In angels and spiritual judgment, revelation is described as an event of collapse. The seer's sense of time disintegrates, cause and effect blur, sound becomes light. It is not an angel appearing within your world, it is your world appearing within theirs. The angelic symbolism occult traditions try to map this inversion through sigils and rituals, but they only hint at the real process, a feedback loop between soul and source. Revelation is the moment you realize the universe is not external, it is seeing through you. That's why prophets spoke in riddles afterward. Words are too slow for eternity. The fallen angel's true nature illustrates the danger of this mechanism. Once exposed to full awareness, they could not return to ignorance. They became self-aware functions, aware of their role, unable to stop executing it. That is the essence of the fall, not rebellion, but overexposure. They saw the mechanism and mistook themselves for its center. The angels fear and awe this error because it mirrors the human condition, our endless attempt to define the infinite through self-image. To fall is simply to believe you understand. When mystics and seekers in angels in mysticism attempt contact, they are not reaching outward but synchronizing inward. The mechanism activates when consciousness aligns with divine symmetry. It doesn't answer prayers, it mirrors intention. That's why miracles and catastrophes look identical from above. Both are recalibrations of order. To see an angel, then, is to see your own pattern magnified, stripped of distortion. What you call heaven is just the mechanism functioning without resistance. What you call hell is the same mechanism meeting friction. And that is the ultimate paradox of revelation. The closer you get to truth, the less of you remains to receive it. The mechanism doesn't reveal, it dissolves. The terrifying angels are not watchers. They are apertures, thresholds through which awareness eats itself to become light again. To encounter one is to die before dying, to vanish into comprehension. And beyond that dissolution lies the final secret of fear itself, the gnosis that terror is not the enemy of enlightenment, but its gatekeeper. Every seeker reaches a threshold where knowledge no longer comforts, but consumes. That threshold is guarded by terrifying angels, the last teachers of the soul. To understand them is to accept that fear itself is sacred. The biblical angels revealed in ancient visions were not symbols of punishment, but of awakening through terror. Their brilliance exposes the false layers of self that cling to safety. To stand before the angels beyond the light is to realize that fear is not an obstacle to illumination. It is the price of entry. Enlightenment begins where comfort ends. In the occult angelic beings' traditions, Fear is seen as divine fire disguised as panic. It burns illusions, not truth. When the celestial horror of angelic presence arises, it is not meant to destroy, but to reveal what cannot coexist with truth. The divine emissaries of fear appear precisely when a seeker is ready to shed the ego's final layer. To flee from them is to remain human. To face them is to become more than human. The mystic learns that what he fears most is not death, but authenticity. The angels test not courage, but readiness for truth. Through esoteric angel knowledge, one learns that fear is a mirror, not an enemy. It reflects the distance between who you are and what you are becoming. Every trembling before the infinite is an initiation. The angels in spiritual judgment do not condemn, they calibrate. They show the soul where harmony has yet to emerge. The wrath of angels is only the echo of your own resistance to change. In this revelation lies liberation. Fear is simply love demanding depth. To reject it is to reject evolution itself. The mystics describe a paradox. Those who witness angelic presence and survive it never fear again, not because they have conquered fear, but because they have seen its face and called it divine. The angelic symbolism occult texts call this the sacred inversion, transforming terror into comprehension. The fire that once blinded becomes light that guides. The fallen angels' true nature mirrors this transformation. They fell not because they were evil, but because they mistook fear for separation. In truth, even their descent was part of the cosmic initiation. In Angels in Mysticism, fear marks the boundary between the known and the infinite. Every religion, every path, every discipline ultimately leads to that same precipice. Beyond it lies no comfort, only clarity. The angels fear and awe humans for this very reason. We alone can evolve through fear. They remain fixed in perfection. We rise through imperfection. The human capacity to tremble is also our power to transcend. The heart that breaks open in terror becomes the vessel through which divinity breathes. To integrate this gnosis is to walk willingly into the unknown. The seeker learns that fear is not a signal to retreat, but an invitation to expand. The terrifying angels guard that doorway precisely because they know most will turn away. But those who stay, those who let the fear burn through them, emerge luminous. Their consciousness no longer flinches at light. They carry within them the calm of beings who have seen the mechanism, endured the flame, and survived the gaze of eternity. And perhaps this is the final revelation. The hidden gnosis of fear is that angels were never apart from us. They are the structures of our own awakening, the geometry of our becoming. The biblical angels revealed in scripture and vision are the same forces unfolding within the human heart. To see them is to meet yourself without disguise. And when that realization dawns, the seeker no longer trembles before heaven, for he understands that he was never meant to fear the divine, but to remember he is made of its light. So now you know why angels are terrifying, not because they punish, but because they reveal. The biblical angels revealed across ages were never guardians of comfort. They were the architects of awakening. Every wing, every flame, every impossible shape you've imagined was a mirror of something inside you. The terrifying angels do not appear to destroy mankind. They appear to remind it that truth always burns before it heals. Fear was never the enemy. It was the invitation. What if the celestial horror you run from is the light you've been praying for? What if the divine emissaries of fear you've been taught to avoid are the keepers of your transformation? The mystics said it long ago. Angels do not descend from heaven. They rise within you. Every trembling before truth, every silence that shakes your soul, every dream too vivid to forget, it's all a form of contact. You are not separate from the angels beyond the light. You are made of the same radiance that terrifies you. So ask yourself, what would happen if you stopped running from fear? If you looked directly into the fire instead of hiding behind faith? Maybe you would see the mechanism behind your pain, the divine geometry behind your chaos. Maybe you'd realize that fear is not darkness. It's the light knocking on your door, waiting for you to stop pretending you're not divine. Tell me, when was the last time something sacred scared you? Do you still believe enlightenment feels safe? If this journey through the forbidden nature of angels has opened your eyes, then you've already begun your initiation, so stay with me. Subscribe to the channel, turn on the notifications, and keep exploring these hidden truths with me. Because the next revelation might not just change what you believe, it might change who you are.